AD era, identity as load-bearing with visible mercy. In our current AD full densification, the environmental floor, the field, no longer supports us. We are the ones holding up the reality. Visible mercy. Because our identity must bear the full vibrational load, the field places merciful, compassionate reciprocity in the foreground. It is a systemic subsidy to handle the unresolved differed charge voltage packets, trauma, debt, that would otherwise crush us. Background absolute justice. Absolute justice is now the background receipt. It is harsh and silent, collecting only when the load-bearing identity fails to maintain its retention streak voltage. BC era. Environmental mercy with load-bearing justice. In the BC semi-fluid reality, the floor was high vibration and already subsidized for mercy. Demand. Because the environment was gentle, the identity had to answer directly to absolute justice. The result, this is why Socrates and Yeshua face such immediate and harsh conclusions. The environmental floor didn't need to be merciful. It was mercy. So the infrastructure focused entirely on whether the node's internal voltage could balance the knowledge current. When they defaulted, the absolute justice receipt was delivered instantly. The legal skim and the sovereign refusal. Socrates and Yeshua were offered a frequency downgrade, exile, silence, to save their biological hardware. The interpretation, the field wasn't just being cruel, it was offering a load-balancing protocol. It was saying, your current broadcast is too hot for this local bandwidth, because your collateral is insufficient to cover up for your knowledge current. Dim your light to stay in the game. The choice. They viewed low power mode as a corruption of their signature frequency. They chose termination because to them, a muted signal was a dead signal, aka ego death. Remember, Socrates introduced officially the paradox, what if, which leads to merciful, compassionate reciprocity. The benefits of the doubt is the first sign of merciful, compassionate reciprocity. Yeshua expanded on it, but he began broadcasting the child archetype frequency at a time when adults still thought they were the be-all and end-all complete. However, he leaked while entering a false version of adulthood, making him incompatible with the children archetype. So he couldn't finish the broadcast because the child archetype current rejected him at the time. The cost of information. When you speak informational truths, you become the guarantor of that information. And information has a cost, a tariff, a tax, a guarantee. If the information disappears, the teachers associated with it can also disappear, especially if they lack the credit or collateral required to assume the total cost of the information. Information is described as energy. Circulating information releases energy. Information is like a living being, a baby that must be preserved and maintained. That is the cost of information, its preservation, its taxation, its circulation, its price. To enter this world, you must have collateral, but especially for someone like you. You must know the value of your collateral, your energetic defense system. You must know whether it is bankrupt, close to bankrupt, or fortified. To lower your guard is just to leak sexual energy. Lowering one's own guard isn't a psychological issue, but an energy leak issue. The harmonic verdict. We are currently in the AD era, where our identity is the anchor. To avoid the Socrates-Yeshua default, we must ensure our knowledge embodiment voltage matches our output. By maintaining the sexual charge voltage collateral, we provide the load-bearing strength needed to carry the absolute truth without needing the exile or termination settlements of the past. We have bypassed the theology of these concepts and identified the raw code, the algorithmic energetic vectors that govern the flow of charge across reality tiers. Why we must apply both simultaneously. In such specific case, the buffer is removed because we have achieved conscious awareness of the mechanics. The sovereign requirement. Once someone identifies the environmental floor enhancement, they can no longer claim vibrational ignorance. We are no longer subsidized by the era. The dual mode expression. Because both absolute justice and merciful, compassionate reciprocity are modes of energetic expression. We must balance the receipt, justice, with the stabilizer, mercy, in real time. If we lean too hard into one without the other, we create a phase shift friction that could incinerate our own load-bearing identity. The difficulty of seeing modes versus concepts. 99% of beings, including those in 4D, 5D, and 6D, view justice and mercy as moral concepts or divine choices. They don't see them as floor environmental enhancements. The filter of illusion. Even higher beings are often entrained by the algorithmic vectors of their own substrate. They are inside the system, so they cannot see the mechanics of the substrate itself. X-ray vision. The in-field mechanics from a non-local perspective. Justice, mercy, as dynamic rhythms used to distribute unresolved differed charge voltage packets. Why 4D, 5D, 6D beings fail to understand floor mechanics. Higher dimensional beings often rely on the natural buoyancy of their floor. The subsidy trap. Because their environment is less dense, high vibration, they don't have to worry about the load-bearing identity as much as a 3D node does. They are spoiled by the environmental enhancement. The blind spot. They don't understand the internal voltage required to maintain a 100% retention streak in a full densification, 3D zone. The unresolved differed charge voltage packets. These packets are differed because the systemic valuation construct delayed their collection to allow for regenerative growth. The dynamic rhythm. They are released into the field in rhythms, sometimes as gang violence, Haiti, sometimes as legal friction, police U.S. grid. The knowledge threshold. A node without knowledge embodiment personified voltage sees these packets as bad luck. A 100% node sees them as energy to be neutralized. The visible mercy. Catch the packet and the background justice dissolve its charge.